Hello and welcome to another review. This time, it's the one with the maggots. The Green Death is the last recorded and broadcast story of Season 10, which started with the Three Doctors. It's the penultimate season of Jon Pertwee's tenure as the Doctor, and as always, I have in front of me here the television companion. I'm going to read the plot synopsis of the story before we go any further, so here we go. Unit is called in after a miner from the Welsh village of Clan Fairfax is found dead, his skin glowing bright green. Joe joins forces with the local environmental group led by Professor Clifford Jones, while the Doctor investigates the nearby plant of a company called Global Chemicals. They discover that the mine workings are full of giant maggots and green slime, both lethal to the touch, that have been produced by chemical waste pumped from the Global plant. Stevens, the director of Global, has been taken over by the boss, Biomorphic Organizational Systems Supervisor, a computer with a will of its own. The boss plans to seize power by linking itself to every other major computer in the world, but the Doctor uses a blue crystal, a souvenir from a brief visit to the planet Metabilis 3, to break its hold over Stevens, who then programs it to self-destruct. The maggots, on the point of pupating into giant insects, are destroyed with a type of fungus. Joe falls in love with Professor Jones and decides to leave Unit in order to accompany him on an expedition up the Amazon, and to marry him. The Doctor gives her the blue crystal as an early wedding present. Ah, isn't that nice? This one, as I mentioned in the introduction, is the one with the maggots. It's the one where giant maggots are coming up from mines in the South Wales colliery area. It was, as I say, the last one to be filmed of the season, and for the season, that is. It wasn't the last one in production. The Time Warrior was filmed straight after, but that tended to be a trend that they did because Barry Letts liked to direct an episode a season, so a story a season, so that was his way of getting that done. I can't remember if he did record the Time Warrior, but it gave him scope to do that episode straight off. Two things to this. It's the technology taking over the world type story, but it's more famous for its environmental parable, which is coming to life now. I mean, for a good 30 years it was on the cusp about your renewable energy and the protein fungus, which happens to be corn, of course, and the fact of windmills and wave power and, you know, reusable energy and the environmental factors, which were very radical for the time in the early 1970s, but have become very, very popular now, and very populist, and becoming more or less the norm as fossil fuels run out and energy runs out and oil is running dry. And you know, it was a very interesting parable and story for that. And of course the effects of environmental pollution, right, a bit strange having giant maggots, but you know, it's an interesting horror story, and the maggots are truly terrifying. It's one of the first stories I remember watching as a child when they did the review of the they did an anniversary thing of an episode or story from each Doctor for the 30th anniversary. The stories I remember very vividly are this one, and the Caves of Androzani, which I may review in the future. But those two are the two vivid ones I remember of all the Doctors, and the Green Death became one of my favourite stories for a good wee while. And it is one of the early stories I have in my VHS collection as well, so it's one I've watched multiple times and I'm very fond of. But let's go into the story itself and go into the actors and the characters involved. Now, of course, you've got Jon Pertwee as the Doctor. He's at the height of his powers here. You know, he's very confident in what he's doing. It's nice to see Jon Pertwee use his comedy skills a little bit, because the third Doctor isn't really known for his comedy stuff. In fact, he doesn't really do much comedy at all, but in this stage he does two impersonations. Impersonation of a milkman to get into Global Chemicals, and impersonation of a cleaning lady to try and keep in Global Chemicals as he gets found out by the security. So that's very fun and very cool to see, and obviously it's showing Jon Pertwee's impressionist strengths coming out there, which is brilliant to see. And Katie Manning, she's nailed the character by now. Jo is, the relationship between her and the Doctor is really refined by now. You can see there's a love and a care between them, an understanding. He's definitely a father figure to her. but she still does exactly what she's done for the previous 3 years, and you can see that reinforced in some of the things she was doing when she got introduced to Clifford Jones, and the way that she acts with him, and obviously starts to fall in love with him. But the way that she's ending up talking about the Doctor, and the way she treats him, and the way she's going with Dr. Jones as well, and the way she's been clumsy in that around him is something that obviously she did in the first episode, Terror of the Autons, that she was in. So that's something that she carries on. Nicholas Courtney, as always, has always been very strong and very steady brigadier. At this point, he knows what he was doing. He can do it off pat. You can see that. He's got a fine balance in the story of trying to work with the establishment through Stevens and Global Chemicals, because they've got a lot of political power, and then obviously helping in the environmental side and knowing about what's happening with the maggots, and wants to find out what's happening there. The miners story, the idea of the waste being pumped down the mine, that's very ineffectual, but the fact there was maggots down there, and the events they carry on through the story of them trying to prevent the maggots from causing any trouble, and then making the situation worse, is really good. It's really cool. Then we've got the two main guest actors in here. We've got Jerome Wilms, who plays Stevens, and he is perfectly brilliant as the main antagonist. Very much the cool steel of a businessman. Very enjoyable to watch. You've also got John Dirth, who has the voice of the boss. Very sinister. The character is there. The fact that this machine is merged into Stephen's consciousness in some way and has brought a character and personality, a megalomaniac personality of its own, is very cool, very calculating, very scary. And I love the conversations that he and Stevens have throughout the story. At least I think it's a he. Then we've got other supporting cast. We've got John Levine, Richard Franklin. John Levine just doing a sterling job as always as Benton. He's more there as a shouty man, the lead shouty man in there. It's nice to have Richard Franklin doing a different role for Captain Yates and being the undercover man for once. And he plays a good part. Both of them only in for the last 3 episodes, but they are enjoyable to watch. Then you have the main goodie guest star of Stuart Bevan, who plays Clifford Jones. Now, Stuart Bevan was Katie Manning's partner at the time of the episode, and he put on a Welsh accent, and he is the best of the goodie guest stars that you have in here. Very believable. I love the character. I love the fact he's got that intelligence there, but also is Welsh, and that's something that's quite unique. You don't really see that in Doctor Who of that era, of a character's not got an RP voice that's intelligent. It seems to be an interesting factor, and I really did enjoy it, seeing that. The build-up to the cause of the Green Minders was very good, very atmospheric for the first 2 episodes, and the fact that the Minders kept going down and kept getting green because they're inquisitive. At the end of the day, they're being inquisitive when they're touching the slime and going green. But then you find the maggots at the west seam of the mine, in Clan Fairfax, as it's called, that's good. And I did enjoy it. The CSO scene where the Doctor and the Joe are wading through the maggots is really poorly done, but it's a nice attempt considering what it was. It's too long. It's the precursor of the limitations of CSO, and they make it even worse of the limitations of CSO, or chroma key as we all know it. CSO is what the BBC calls it. They show the limitations of it in Underworld and a later story in the Tom Baker era, but this is where you start to see it a little creaky and it's not working. CSO is used, or chroma key is used a lot to cover a few errors and mistakes. They didn't have enough time to film some of the outside scenes at the slag heap, so they did a still frame picture in the background of all the characters, all the armed unit characters, reacting to what's happening, the other side. So there's a bit of CSO there. The good bit of CSO that worked, and the good bit of chroma key that worked, I keep saying CSO because that's what I'm used to calling it for the Doctor Who stuff. The good bit of chroma key they did do was the chroma key of, it's very simple chroma key, the superimposing of the boss on the oscillator graph that's portraying his voice over the television screen, then the bigger, rounder screen you see in the top floor of Global Chemicals later on. Very well done. It's very creepy, and I do enjoy it a lot. Speaking of design itself, the maggots are very iconic. They're very well put together. They're very scary. They do stand up to scrutiny 40 odd years later. The flying insect scared me as a kid. I didn't enjoy watching that at all. The first couple of times I watched it as an adult, when I started becoming a Doctor Who fan proper, it still gave me the shivers. Still does at times if I'm drunk. But it is a very scary very scary situation, a very scary monster in my eyes, and it's very freaky. Insects and that always give me the creepy crawlies a little bit as well. The design, the office at Global Chemicals, very kitsch, very early 70s, very of its times. You certainly see some smoking and drinking from Stevens and other members of staff, including the Brigadier, in the office. A very 70s thing about the way high echelons of business work. The brainwashing scenes are great. The headphones that they put on to brainwash, yeah, they're very 70s, but they're very nice in their design and the way that they're used to brainwash. And also you've got the opposite side of the blue crystal, which the Doctor gets from Metebelis 3. That's a basic effect really, but it does make a difference. I do enjoy it. The best bit I did like of the brainwashing bits was when Stephen starts to lose control at the end of episode 1, and Dudley Simpson, who does the music for this, and the music is very standard fare most of the time in this story. It's very Dudley Simpson with its mix of, at this point, synthesizer in his orchestra. But there is an element here. The very good bit is when there's a timpani rolling and hitting a few beats as Stevens is going to the headphones and putting the headphones on to get back to in sync with the boss in his brainwashing. And you see that bit, and you see the timpani in the background, and it's very, very atmospheric, and I did enjoy that bit. Speaking of Blue Crystal, you've got the Metebelis subplot. Now, this has been a running theme through the whole of the series 10, more or less. The Doctor wants to get to Metebelis 3, never hitting it. He does in this story. He regrets it. He's getting the Blue Crystal, but he's gone to a hell world, a blue hell world. Well realised, obviously must be filmed either on location at the slag heaps with a lot of blue light, or in Ealing. I'm not sure where, but it does. I did enjoy that part, and I think it was a very good way it was done. Story overall, it moves along okay for a 70s story. Could have been a couple of episodes shorter. I think we could have got to the end by the end of 4 episodes. There's a lot of minions in Global Chemicals being hypnotised and then killing themselves in it. It's really interesting how Stevens tries to prolong any investigations into the mine because he knows he's going to get found out. But there's the ultimate plot there of obviously the computer taking over the world. Story you've had a couple of times in Doctor Who up to that point. Most famous of them would be the War Machines with Wotan. That's another story you'll probably get in the future. But overall, I think I'll give this story 4 TARDISes out of 5. That's my review of The Green Death. If you like that, please don't forget to subscribe and comment below, and I shall see you next time. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you later.